Hello, and welcome to Discussion. Our team provides major international and Southeast Asian news summary through our Substack page and website. And this is first, it's a nickname, and we have Joshua as always. And yeah, besides those news summary that we said, we also do a video discussion like what we're doing today, where we go through the major news that we cover throughout the week and give it our thoughts. Then we generally finish it off with a short debate on controversial or trendy topic in Southeast Asia or the world. And today we're gonna talk about Biden's age, which has become kind of a hot topic in the political space across the world even. um I was when I was researching for like on the side note, like when I was researching this, there's even like of French news where they just invite different guests when they just debate it out about Biden's age. So we're trying to do that the same thing, but without going into extensive details like those folks. So let's get started. Let me share my screen as well, folks. And pardon us for the, how do I phrase this? Lots of links. Anyway, today I like to start with some of the updates from last week. So last week we have a lot of we have a lot of military exercises, and in terms of international relations as well. And I like to start with the fact that Philippines and China met on last Saturday for a talk. The Philippines is going to meet with the US on 1st of May, which is coming soon. Mm, the funny thing that, yeah, I also put it there, right? The funny thing that happened was that while Philippines and China met, they're also doing the military exercise at the same time with the US. So it was this kind of a weird talk, but like once again, I think it's just good to sustain the dialogue still with China. So for folks who are not familiar with in terms of international relations, that if you think about it operationally, it's very hard to get leaders to kind of have matching schedule to schedule a talk. So Philippines and China talking now is good in a way that it could de-escalate things in the South China Sea in the future. Yeah, what do you think about this, Joshua?
I mean, Philippines has to balance whatever they're
Uh,
trying to do with the US because China is their largest trading partner.
yeah, exactly.
You don't want to piss them off. And
Yeah,
they've
yeah,
been known to, if you piss them off, they'll just fuck you.
yeah. Like ban certain products.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
they did to Australia.
Yeah, I think what did they ban? Was it meat or wine?
From Australia, I
Yeah.
think it was coal, if I remember
Oh, cool.
correctly.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah, coal.
mm, I see.
But it
I
was an unofficial ban, so it's never an official ban. We just fuck them
what
off.
the fuck that means. Yeah. And now linking that right throughout the talk, the Philippines and US also had this largest military exercise. And the funny thing, we also wrote it that way. So they did a scenario where an island was captured by a fictitious country, and the US and Philippines are supposed to recapture that as part of the military exercise. Obviously, experts and readers know it's China. It's like this is, yeah, but diplomatically, like us, you're not supposed to say that. So, yeah, that was the funniest shit because they actually said like fictitious country. Uh, such a yeah, and
I
then
mean, this should be about the, if I'm not wrong, this should be the Spratly Islands, right? The
yeah,
South China Sea that everyone's disputing.
yeah. So there's like different areas for like different countries that are like they claim. So it's different. I think Vietnam claims certain parts, Philippines claims certain parts, China claims most of it, which is hence all the drama. Nothing's really happening much besides that. But I don't know if I should link it to it now, but I'll do it now actually. Despite all the meetings and talks and military exercise, there's an escalating move between China and Philippines. I think it was, I can't remember what day it happened, but it was last week for sure. So what happened was that Philippines, they actually brought a bunch of journalists. I think can't remember the number. but there's some from the US as well. And this is part of Philippines kind of, I wouldn't say scheme. It's more like an initiative to show that hey, the South China Sea is actually, it's quite aggressive what China is doing. So they were hoping that they would expose China by bringing journalists, and it actually happened. As in, the Philippines ship was just cruising around along, and then it went into like this debated territorial area, and then it got warned repeatedly by China that like please fuck off. Obviously they didn't say fuck off, they were saying something else to like leave the area. uh and eventually it led to an almost collision, as in the Philippines ship had to make a sudden stop, otherwise it would crash into the Chinese ship and all of that, right? So it almost escalated into an actual crash. As of now, we haven't heard much results from the leaders from each country, like, oh, what's going to be the repercussions, what's going to be the consequences. Wonder if we have photos. I think we might have. Oh, never mind, we didn't put, I think legal reasons we didn't put it, but folks, you can go and check it out of the photos. Yeah, what do you think of the collision?
Wait, just the collision? I think
Yeah,
China's is just putting its money where its mouth is.
yeah,
They're saying this is ours, fuck off.
yeah. I'll try to show the photo actually. How fuck the copyright. We're too small to be getting copyright for now. Collision. I don't know if this is when it exactly happened, but the Chinese ship was much bigger. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. And besides that, yeah, once again, nothing happened. And moving on to the next part, before we go into like Singapore news and stuff, we also have China and Singapore starting off their own military exercise, which was kind of weird. But I mean, initially it was kind of weird to me, but it it started because they actually signed a protection deal in 2019. I guess it was kind of before all this escalating tension from last year and this year, right? So I guess Singapore just doing what it's supposed to do as per the agreement. It's not just doing it because it's following China's bidding. So now they're gonna be doing it. I think this week. They haven't specified the specific place that they're doing, but they're just doing it this week. Yeah. What do you think of this one?
No, I think it makes sense. Yeah. I mean,
Mm,
Singapore is like I said, right? Protection deal. They just signed it, so they're doing it. But I do
yeah.
wonder how Singapore's gonna try and balance this because they gotta keep good ties with the US and with China.
Yeah.
So my thought is maybe they're trying to say this is just part of the deal to the US. They're just like, yeah, it's not like we really want to. It's
Mhm.
just we have to.
Yeah, true. Because we haven't like on the news so far. I haven't seen like any major officials coming to the exercise. Maybe they will, but normally, if you want to start a dialogue, right, diplomatic dialogue, you generally have like a major military leader who kind of comes in as well. But this time we haven't seen anything yet between China and Singapore. And Singapore has always been known to trying to remain neutral, diplomatically, economically, because it's a small country. So we'll let you know. We'll update you folks if there's anything for that.
I mean, Singapore's strategy is to basically get all the rich people from all these big countries to come over
I
because they have the power and they have the influence, right? So, like for
mm,
example, TikTok CEO lives here,
ah
so definitely, because he's basically TikTok's a subsidiary of ByteDance, right?
mm,
So definitely that through him, they probably have a nice channel to the CCP.
yeah.
You know,
And you brought up a good point about money flowing into Singapore. So I think 2 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was a news about how. So I think I can't remember who wrote it, but it's maybe it's Financial Times. I'm not sure. Anyway, so they wrote about how the Singapore government through I think MAS, they're like been kind telling everyone to like keep it hush hush about how Chinese money has been flowing into Singapore. And obviously the Singapore government kind of comes out and say that, oh, we don't really, we transparent, we don't really hide this type of stuff. So there's like a debate whether or not it's real and stuff. So yeah, that you brought up a good point. Obviously, we don't know for sure if it's real, but then if we look into the family offices where they manage high net worth people's money, it's been going up quite a lot over the last few years, which maybe indicate that a lot of Chinese money actually came to Singapore. But yeah, just brought up a good point.
I don't know if necessarily it's Chinese money, but there's
Mm,
definitely a lot of money coming into Singapore now.
yeah,
The property market's been going crazy,
yeah,
and so now the government has implemented new cooling measures.
mm,
So I think if you're a foreigner and you want to buy a property in Singapore,
hmm,
it's the additional tax you have to pay is nearly 60%.
yeah. I
Which
seen
is
that as well.
insane.
It's from 30%.
Yes,
It's
it's
such a
huge.
it's a fuck you to the foreigners. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, if you think about it, right? Properties in Singapore, they really go for millions. This is like
Mm,
an additional million plus on top. Like, ouch.
yeah. I,
Yeah.
I I get it. I mean, in a way, it protects the citizens to like trying to get housing. Yeah, I would do the same.
It's insane.
Moving on. Yes, I want to do this one. Oh, it's already here. So I think it was last week. So one of the Chinese ambassadors make like a diplomatic fallout. So so this is an ambassador in France. I'm not sure it's Paris, but maybe it is. Anyway, he was interviewed in a French TV, and then he was giving speech about how he didn't really recognize. Um, I can pull his quote directly. I don't want to misquote this. Yeah, so you can see it here. So he was saying like how countries from this former Soviet Union don't really have effective status in that international law, and that kind of caused a firestorm, shitstorm for his case, because even though it's his words, and it might be his opinion, diplomatically, when you're an ambassador, we also wrote this in our article as well, where when you're an ambassador, you're essentially the highest ranking person in that country, representing the country's thoughts or affairs. So when an ambassador says things like that, it could be interpreted like, oh, maybe this is how, yeah, like some experts say, like, oh, maybe this is how China thinks about these former Soviet Union countries, states, right? Oh, they don't really see them as countries; they just see them as like some shit that Russia can take over. So the Russia-Ukraine war, China is on the side of Russia, stuff like this. So the Chinese government, through a spokesperson, had to come out and say that, oh, you know, is the ambassador's words are just his own opinion. It's not really the Chinese government's
Or,
words.
or
Uh-huh.
crazy idea.
Yeah.
He said it. It was actually their words. They realized, okay, the media reception is not great. So let's tweet it.
Yeah. Yeah, he got summoned by France, and then a few countries gonna summon him as well. Do I have the countries? Mm, yeah, I don't know if I put it there, but I think I might. Yeah, I we put it there. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, obviously France. So they're gonna summon him, ask him to like kind of explain himself. Yeah, and it's such uh, it's such a weird thing to happen.
Mm.
Hmm. Anyway, moving on. So now we're moving on to some of the more dramatic story. We'll discuss this in more details, I think, and I have my own thoughts as well. So this one is quite major in a way that so the president Yoon from South Korea, he's meeting Biden now. I'm not sure if the meeting is finished, but the result has already come out where the US has agreed to give South Korea I guess access to nuclear weapons against North Korea's in case of the war, right? Not like they're gonna nuke them now. And obviously in exchange, South Korea has to not make their own nuclear weapons. And I actually have a quote from Biden. I like to say because I think it sounds quite badass and maybe overly aggressive. So one line that he said like, look, a nuclear attack by North Korea against the United States, its allies or partners is unacceptable and will result in the end of whatever regime were to take such an action. Like he sounds more like Trump than Trump ever does. With I mean, Trump says shit like this before. I think about like North Korea.
Yeah, about Rocket Man, right?
Yeah, and then he went to have a talk with Kim Jong Un, and he said like Kim Jong Un's a great guy or some shit. It was such a weird, how like 180-degree reverse. And then now because Biden, Biden's like some of the articles like over the years, he said like Biden's even more tougher with China than Trump was. I mean, Trump said a lot of shit, but when he did like some ban on like the U.S.-China trade war a few years back, it's like the impact wasn't as bad as the not bad. The impact wasn't as large as what Biden's doing now.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
what is he doing against China? I'm not sure.
Ah, right. So Biden bans a lot of stuff from like China exports, chip manufacturing. He's like gathering other allies to like do the same thing. I think we might have talked about it a while back where I think some Scandinavian countries also don't really export certain technology to China. So it's stuff like this, like where like we thought that he would be more diplomatic, I guess. I mean, at least I thought he would be more diplomatic, but he's actually quite tough. And a lot of his newer stuff is even quite nationalistic. For example, he just has the new policy announced about changing the cars into EV by I can't remember what year, but the key point is that the cars have to have in order to get like tax credit, the parts of the cars have to be made in the US. So it's quite nationalistic policies. So that's gonna force a lot of manufacturers to kind of have their own plants in the US. Mm,
Mm.
Biden EV policy. Oh yeah, like pretty fast. Like in roughly 10, 12 years, he wants a lot of EV cars essentially.
Hmm.
Oh.
That is interesting. I wonder what. Huh. So this is like kind of anti-globalization in a way. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just thinking why.
Yeah,
Like
like
maybe it's just to protect Americans. I
yeah,
don't know.
I I mean, wouldn't the cars become more expensive because it's in
Yeah,
the
they would.
US?
They would.
Yeah, they
But I
would,
guess
right?
the idea is you're offsetting it with credits, right?
Yeah, with tax credit. Yeah, exactly. And then say, yeah, and it's a little fuck you to African countries that they take the minerals from, but that's
Yeah.
not that concerned. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
It's not that concerned.
yeah, it's not that
Let
concerned,
these
right?
African countries fuck themselves.
Indonesia it actually has similar things. So Indonesia also has similar policy about cars being produced in Indonesia. They Indonesia also has policies like blocking or limiting exports of certain minerals used to produce electric vehicles as well, because it wants to be like a hub for EVs as well. So we need to.
But doesn't
Hmm.
China control one or two of their cobalt mines? Right?
Yeah, that's true. So I actually don't have the enough details on it. So I also wonder how it's gonna play out. Like, is China
Yeah.
gonna force Indonesia to like stop banning all these exports of the minerals? But then again, if China already owns the mines in Indonesia, I guess it's fine because it's within the country.
Yeah, it's a bit confusing.
Yeah. So yeah, agreed. So we need to wait and see how that turns out, right?
Yeah, exactly. I
Mm-hmm.
guess it comes down to the fact whether or not these mines are considered Indonesian land or
Mm.
Chinese land.
Yeah, very good point.
That's where I think the thing is going.
Yeah. And now moving to ah remember this story. I was like, oh, what the fuck's going on? Um Singapore subsidiary of British American Tobacco, so BAT. I don't know if it's BAT or BAT, but anyway, this company produces products like Lucky Strike, um, and Dunhill cigarettes. So it's the second largest, right? So the Singapore subsidiary it pleads guilty for selling tobacco to North Korea. I think over the period of 10 years, from 2007 to 2017, and I thought it was such a weird thing because the company is a listed company. I don't know if it's UK listed or the US listed, but I don't know how it managed to sell it to North Korea for
No,
10
I mean,
years.
it had an agreement, a joint venture with I think
Mm,
North Korea's cigarette producer. I can't remember the name.
right.
Pyongyang something.
Mm,
But like in 2007, I think
uh-huh.
all the sanctions were put against North Korea, so they transferred they sold their ownership, their stake in the joint venture to their subsidiary.
I see, right.
Yeah, so they kind of moved it away from them to their subsidiary.
Right.
They still had control, right? But
Yeah. So they let the Singapore subsidiary kind of take the blame.
sort of, but they ended up taking the blame.
Mm. And for the in terms of legality, which we didn't write into this, so they taken the deal. They taken this deferred prosecution
Yeah,
deal in the US, which means that they have to plead guilty, pay fines, which is quite a lot, right? Close to $1 billion. But then in the end, they're not going to be criminally charged if they follow through the deal. So the firm's not going to be like, oh, it's going to be sold or things like that. Just pay a huge fine.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting because it was actually approved by the executives in London in 2017 to kind of work around this. I guess back then they didn't really think North Korea was a big thing. I don't know. 2017 was way.
Wait, 07 or 17?
Oh, 07, oh 07.
Yeah, you were saying 2017.
Sorry, oh 07. Ah. And then on a side note, right? It's also brought up another case. This is a separate case, but it still links to North Korea, where the Justice Department also filed criminal charges against three people who like facilitated the purchase of tobacco leaf for North Korea state owned cigarette manufacturers. I didn't know North Korea has its own manufacturing facility for this because I
I
was
mean,
thinking like,
I think this is directly related to Kim Jong Un being a chain smoker.
chain smoker. Yeah, that's what I use this for. That's yeah. Well, and I guess the way they make money is that they sell a lot of illegal fake cigarettes, like under this like Marlboro brand or Mao 7, and obviously it's fake. And then that's how they make money, and then you use that money to, I guess, fund your nuclear missiles or arsenal, right? So yeah, it was kind of like it shed some light into how North Korea operates and gets money, because I always wonder. I know that it gets aid from different organizations or despite the sanctions, but this is quite clear on how they like kind of get money for themselves.
Yeah. So if you want a
Hmm.
bit more information,
Mm-hmm.
shall I just pass you the link?
Uh,
Yeah, you take a look. There's a nice diagram on that.
Ugh. Paywall, my man.
You got hit by a paywall. Shit.
uh,
You get hit.
okay, can you share the
Wait.
screen instead?
Let me just no. Let me just pass you a picture.
Okay. Financial Times.
No, it just shows how the money moved. It's nice.
I do love diagrams. Okay. How many move North Korea to pay for British cigarettes?
Yeah, because the cash was in North Korea, right? So they gotta pay for the British cigarettes because they're buying tobacco and shit from British America.
So they use like a Chinese bank, and then they kind of
Yeah, I thought it
yeah.
was interesting because you see how all these money moves. Right?
Yeah. Fuck.
Yeah, you see how little like people give a shit when it comes to
Yeah.
probably a shitload of money.
Yeah, and I guess it gets cleaner and cleaner as it passes through, right?
Yeah. So that's how
Yeah.
they tricked. If you look at number two, you're not sharing screen, but
Oh, right. I'm not sharing screen. Yeah. Let me share screen.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks.
Yeah. So part two, point two is where it actually gets clean. If you
Mm,
see,
yeah.
it puts it into this KKBC function.
Yeah.
So then it just doesn't look so sus. So it's like a Chinese
Mm,
account at the Bank of China, then sends it to the US. But I don't. What I don't. I guess the idea is to see, because you look at point three, right? Arrow
yeah.
three. I wonder why they sent it to the Singapore company account.
Mm.
My guess is maybe to make it clear that it's a subsidiary, not British American.
Ah, right. So it's like
Yeah,
the Singapore's like handling it, yeah, not the main company or whatever.
yeah, that sort of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Because
I think.
the Singapore branch actually pleads guilty. The parent company kind of pays the fine, I think. Hmm. Really cool. And I think we cover all the major news we want to talk about. Now, the last thing we want to talk about is a little, I guess, quick debate or discussion on Biden's age. Because Biden, how he announced recently that he's going to run for the second term for presidency, and I mean the one of the first few things that came out is like, is he too old? If anyone's looks up on online, read Facebook comments, you see a lot of these posts, and yeah, I think it's just worth to explore all of this. And just a bit of context before we go into the discussion itself is that Biden is already the oldest president of the United States. So he's 80 years old at the moment. Once the election finishes, maybe he'll be around 82 when he take office. Then if he finishes and not dead, he'll be close to 90 years old when he finishes. Trump is about 76, 77, around that. So Trump is pretty old as well. Um, in terms of opinions, right? If you scout the internet, left wing, right wing, you see a lot of posts. Even left wing, you see some posts about how Biden's a bit old. They feel concerned. Obviously, right wing, they keep constantly bringing this up because they Biden's opposition, so it's natural. Mm, I think I have the poll number. Yeah, like in polls show that Democrats want a new face in 2024, but they just can't. Don't really have like a strong candidate, and by that we also have videos. I don't know if we can show it. I don't think we can. But if you check online, right, some of my friends who are right wing, they like to post about how Biden generally misspeaks, or he like seems to forget
Yeah.
certain things. Once again, I don't think that's enough evidence to say that he's like too old for the job. I think even people our age, when we speak publicly, like we sometimes we forget or we misspeak or we just stutter, right? And Biden's known to overcome his stuttering. So he struggled with that when he was a kid, but he kind of practiced and overcame it. Yeah, so it's worth a debate. What do you think, man?
So I'll start this with, what do you think?
Ah, yes. I think it's so I'm using like my frame of reference is like people in my own family. My grandfather is close to 90 years old, and he works out. Like he wakes up at 4 a.m., does like weightlifting. He has like his own weight equipment, and he's pretty coherent. Not pretty, he's really coherent. Still similar to when he was like 20 years earlier when I was a kid. He obviously he's looks older and stuff, but he still like can communicate fine. Nevertheless, personal opinion, right? I feel like if I could choose, I still wouldn't choose my grandfather to run for presidency, even if he had the skills and experience. I mean, seeing someone at that age who's really active, but still he's not like I would prefer that he or Biden would serve in like a old people essentially would serve in more advisory role rather than an active role. Because president sometimes you get called like in the middle of the night. There's a like your schedule is not always predictable, right? I don't know. I don't know if that's like physically. I just don't think the old people can keep it up at that age. It's like advisory is better. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you in this regard. Yeah, yeah. You
Mm,
put it very nicely with your grandfather. Like, yeah, you can be great, you can be like healthy, and you can still be
Mm,
mentally coherent, but there's certain parts of the job that are probably harder for him because of the age, right? Like the late night calls, stuff like that,
yeah, exactly.
Plus, the other problem is as he gets older, like, sure, he might be in good health, but with older people, all it takes is one illness, and
Hmm.
you go from like okay to really bad,
Mm,
and you don't want that for the leader of your country.
mm,
You know what I mean? Like the risk is very high. Like if something happens,
mm. Yeah, that's
you can
true.
only do so much.
And in terms of health, all presidents obviously have to go through like an annual health check. So far, Biden, Trump, Obama, when they went through health check, there will be like a subsequent announcement about like the spokesperson will come out and say like, "Oh, our president's health has been good, in excellent health." So all three presidents and past presidents, they generally say that. And obviously, they would say that, right? They're not gonna come out and say like, "Oh, your president's fucked." Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I mean, so Biden's fine. Obviously, Trump's fine. Excellent health and all of that. Um, let's see
well,
what
I
else.
think it's
Hmm.
interesting that Biden actually thinks he has a good shot of getting elected 2024.
Mm,
Like I feel okay. I'm not sure about the polls, but I
yeah,
think a lot of people were never too keen on him to begin with. It's more just he wasn't Trump.
yeah,
If it was
yeah,
Trump or Biden, he just went with not Trump. So the other
yeah.
guy.
Exactly. So,
You know what I mean? So like I don't
mm,
know how he would fare if the Republicans put up a face that isn't Trump. Not sure.
yeah, yeah. I think the New York Times actually brought up a good point. I'm not. They're quoting certain poll, but I can't remember which one. So he's like, I'm quoting directly from the article. Right, Biden has never quite won over the country or even people in his own party. Even though unemployment is low, the economy is strong, and he has a great record of getting things done in Congress. But nevertheless, 7 out of 10 Americans think the U.S. is on the wrong track. And in terms of productivity, I actually like to show Biden's apparently one of the most active one in terms of executive orders. I don't know if that's a good indicator of being productive, but essentially he's pretty uh, fast hand with signing executive orders. That's what I'm trying to say. So if we look into executive actions during the first 12 days of office, like Biden signed like I don't know 20 over 20. There's a lot of major policies and stuff. I don't know. Once again, folks, I don't know if this is like objectively good. Where there's a lot of orders being signed because and a slow executive order being signed could also mean that you ponder about it more, right? It's not like you just in a hurry just sign and then yeah. So
I mean, it's hard to say because so most of those, a good chunk of those, were getting rid of Trump's.
yeah, there you go. Yeah,
You know, he
yeah.
just came in and was like, "Fuck you." I'm just
Mm.
gonna reverse, 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 reverse.
Welcome to democracy. Yeah.
Yeah, bitch.
Yeah, so Biden likes to say that he's like he got a lot of things done more than any of the recent presidents ever did. So I don't know how that's true. It requires a lot more research than we have the time for. But I for folks who are interested, I urge you to like go and read about it, see if it's right or wrong. But once again, this type of thing is very hard because it's the economy. A lot of stuff are circumstantial. You can't really blame it on Biden, or you can't really quote Biden to be the success factor. It's just
Although
hard. Mhm.
I think the U.S. is hoping for.
Ah,
So Obama didn't actually do too much during his
mm,
time, but he was very charismatic
oh
and
yeah,
got people like around him, right? So the U.S. needs
mm,
to consolidate. So the U.S. is next over the next like few years. Its biggest priority would be consolidating power within Southeast Asia, and
mm,
they need somebody charismatic to do that. I don't
oh.
think Biden's the guy. Biden's just he doesn't he doesn't give you that feeling. You know?
Yeah, like the I don't know. I know what you mean. It's like he's a bit. I don't want to be like a guy who's like discriminative on age, right? But he doesn't look like the guy like you said who's like can go around, talk to different leaders and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and get
Uh,
and make friends and do all that shit. Because all that's
mm,
important too.
yeah.
You know?
Because you said you brought up a good point now in terms of Obama. Um, during his terms, he was like the Congress was quite conflicted in a way that he couldn't really pass a lot of policies
Oh yeah,
because yeah, a lot of Republicans held the seat, so obviously they would get veto
vote
out
against
and
it.
all that. Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's a lot of things were just kind of stuck in limbo and all of that.
that was the problem Obama had.
Yeah. True.
So it's not
Um.
like it was his fault, but it's just
Mm,
nothing much happened during his presidency.
true. And I think we have a few minutes left, and I like to end it with this article by the conversation where it's really going into the age, but it looks into former presidents and leaders in the US, right? So I mean, the article talks about how 80 in 2023 is different than the 1776, but it says that leaders like Jefferson, Washington, or the founding fathers, like they still did great things even though they were quite old, like, but even then, I still feel like they were not really in active roles. For example, Jefferson, when he's old, he just kind of retire to his I can't remember what city, but he had some projects like yeah, he opened the University of Virginia, which was quite a massive achievement in his old age. But still, he it's not as a taxing role as like a presidency, right? So I don't know if this article justifies the old age stuff.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
advisory capacity makes a ton of sense.
yeah, it's a
The
very
problem
different role.
is,
Yeah, go on.
we already saw right that in this term, his current term, right, his
Hmm.
current like presidential term,
Yeah.
he chose Kamala Harris as his VP, and
Hmm.
it was almost entirely political because from what you can see, they barely seem to hang out with each other.
Mm,
Yeah, and the problem is he probably would do something similar for the next election
mm,
because yeah, he would need more support, right? Because he's
yeah,
just not a very popular guy.
yeah.
And the problem is, do you remember we talked about it? If you just rewind a few minutes about the possibility of him getting sick or dying in office.
Oh, yeah.
So what happens when the VP takes over? Like it's somebody who's not him, not probably not exactly on his side. You know what I mean?
Mm,
It's just for political reasons. Like Kamala Harris, he chose her because Asian, female. Uh, yeah, just those two maybe. Just
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And think well before we end, we show some of the global leaders now, right? And generally, yeah, countries that are less free tend to have older leaders. That's natural, because they tend to
Yeah.
hold on to power. But Biden's already one of the oldest in the world, not just the U.S. Like the U.S. is he's obviously the oldest. Uh, mm, thing you can see as well, women tend to be younger and all of this. So it's quite interesting on this topic. But once again, like I'm not really. I don't know if my politics in the U.S. yet, but I think I'm more in the central, kind of central in terms of view. I don't really care much about left wing or right wing. I feel like certain left wing are extremists, certain right wing are extremists. So I'm kind of in the middle, I suppose. And
That's
even
not
then,
me.
yeah, exactly. Does it mean that I have no opinions? Yeah, but like I still feel like Biden's it's too old, right? Can't Why can't he just be in advisory role and push another man or
Yeah,
woman to
yeah,
just be in it?
like
Yeah.
basically kind of guarantee himself an advisory role by helping a guy win, right?
Yeah. Like if he wants to hold on to some power, he can, right? It's just
Yeah,
yeah, it's just a weird thing to be in. But yeah, once again, folks, feel free to make up your own mind, do your own research. But hopefully that we kind of spark some thoughts, right, for you to ponder upon. And that's the whole point of the show. Where okay, we kind of empower you with certain information, and then you go on and make your own decision about what to think of the information that we're giving you. Yeah. Anything else to add, my man?
no, all good.
Yeah. Then we'll end it right here, but stay tuned for next week's episode as well. And obviously, feel free to visit our Substack and our website for daily summary on major news in the world and Southeast Asia. And once again, every week we have a debate like this and also go through about major news that we find interesting, and we just talk it through. Yeah. Then yeah, that's it for today. Bye bye.
See you guys.
Bye.